Hey everybody, it's Tim Copeland, inspiring author, and once again, I'm glad you decided to join me today. I have some exciting news that I'd like to share with you before we get into today's topic, and that is I finished the last pass edit on my work in progress titled A Picture of the Heart. It is now about 48,000 words. It was 35,000 before I started a couple of months ago. So that's very exciting. We added about 12 pages, several chapters, and like I said, about 13,000 words. So I'm excited about that. Also, we have decided which direction to go. We'll be doing a prequel next, which will fill in the backstory of what happened in A Picture of the Heart. Very excited about that. And then the third book in the series will actually take place from a orbital character's perspective, and it'll fill in some details of the things he was experiencing while the main storyline was going on. I actually have 4 or 5 people right now reading it to see if there's any questions and confusion, and then we're going to get it off to the editors and hopefully work on publishing. In today's topic, I want to tell you a little bit about pantsing versus outlining and explain to you why I'm an outliner, and also show you 2 documents just to give you an idea of how I go about that. So, pantsing, what is that? In case you're not familiar with the term, it's basically those who essentially write by the seat of their pants, but there might be a little more to it than that. It doesn't mean that they don't outline at all. It doesn't mean they don't scribble down notes. It's just generally speaking, they don't have a very thorough outline up front before they start writing. The story kind of develops with them as they go. And outlining, on the other hand, or an outliner, is someone who has a more thorough outline before they begin the actual writing process. They'll probably answer questions about the story, maybe write down character bios or profiles and things of that nature to figure out what their personalities are going to be. And if it's anything like myself, I like to have the planned chapters up front and have at least 2 to 3 sentences minimum on every single chapter just to give me an idea or kind of a roadmap of where I'm going. The reason I'm an outliner is because I discovered, and this is where this would really help you if you're a new writer or if you're a frustrated writer. I had no idea about pantsing versus outlining. In fact, I didn't learn that through any kind of writing community. It was 2013 and I was in a professional development course in the Air Force when I started to realize, matter of fact, let me say it like this, I thank God that I began to realize that outlining works really well for me. And as I began to realize that, it made the story so much easier. I had really just been struggling trying to figure out how to write. I just thought you sat down and typed, hit some keys and there you went. And which can happen for people, but for me, it is essential that I have a plan laid out before I get started. I would probably consider myself a little bit of a hybrid between pantsing and outlining just because my outline that I do is not that thorough, but it is essential for me to properly get started, and I seldom go back and reference it once I'm done with it. It's just a way for me to organize my thoughts before actually getting into the project, which to me makes things go a lot smoother. This is where you really have to know yourself a little bit, know what kind of thinker you are, know what kind of person you are. When I learned that about myself, it made life so much easier, and I was able to accept and recognize some things that I hadn't recognized in the past. My mind has a tendency to wander if I'm not careful during videos or lectures or anything like that. So I have a tendency to take notes. In fact, I have probably 1,400 notes on my phone. Outlining for me is essential because it's really how my brain operates. And some people, to them, outlining is just a big chore, right? And they don't enjoy it, and it doesn't progress the story, and it doesn't make it any easier. I have a couple of tools I'd like to share with you today, because if you're like me, you could use some direction. This is, I guess before I show you those, just to give you an idea, this is what I use mine for. I have like 5 documents that I put within a folder that's titled my current work in progress, and I'll title it with the working title. What I'll do is I'll add these 5 documents, just off the top of my head, I don't have them in front of me, but one will be a working copy of my manuscript. This is one where I will type without any edits whatsoever the day before, and then the next day I'll come in and I'll edit the piece. Once I'm satisfied that that's going to be the chapter, I'll move it over to the next document, which is the final copy. The third document that I like to use, to me, is pretty essential. It's called brainstorming, and I love this document because it's kind of like my playground. It's where I go and I'm just throwing all of these thoughts down. Now, this can become pretty cluttered, and if you're like me and you like things neat and orderly, this is probably not it's not the best idea just to go for it in this document. I like to at least have some order still. And what I also do that might help you, if you know anything about hyperlinking documents or bookmarks in documents, I like to hyperlink those 3 documents together. The working copy of the manuscript to my brainstorming, and then to the next document we'll talk about in a minute. And all those hyperlinks just make it a lot easier just to click, and it takes you right to the document and right to that section. And I think the more work you put into this up front, if you're like me, the easier the whole writing process will be in the future, because when you get to that place in the book, if you do have a question and you say, wow, what did I say about that? And you go back to your document, you can scroll down, you can find the chapter, and then you can actually find the links to the questions and answers section. You can find the links to these other documents. So just to me, it's very handy, and it's a very quick way. It doesn't stall your writing a lot. So what I'll do in brainstorming is I'll outline, 9 chapters, right? And then each up one of those chapters, I'll just kind of throw my thoughts down of what's happening and what character is involved. It's not extremely organized in that way, but it is organized by a chapter. And then I'll have the next document is the questions document. And this is basically, if character X does this, what does that imply, or what effect will that have upon character Y? And that is just a real simple question and answer section. This is also a place I might just say, hey, you said it was daytime here, will that affect this later on? And then if I decide, what will the benefits of saying it's daytime be, I'll go back to the brainstorming document up under the correct chapter, and I'll deal with that there. And then the last document that I have is actually, to me this is optional, but I like having it. It's where I put my old writing. So when I get it to my final copy, and I'm going through this editing phase again and again and again and again, there's obviously going to be chunks of writing that comes out. Sometimes a whole chapter comes out, which that's fairly rare, but sometimes large sections. And what I'll do is I'll have, same way as the brainstorming, the same way as the question section, each chapter will be laid out in this document titled Old Writings for this work in progress. And what I'll do is I'll just, whatever I've edited out, I'll put it in the corresponding chapter in the old writings. I don't hyperlink it to anything, but that's just a safety net for me. If I get to a place where I'm like, oh man, I took this out, I needed that, I have it there, right? I can just go grab it again, pull it back over. That doesn't happen often in truth, but it just makes me feel good to have it. So let me just quickly share my screen with you. And so what I have here is just like I told you, just, this is my current work in progress. The title, shorthand title, and then it's just questions, right? So I have chapter 1, and then you can see I've got brainstorming linked there. So I know where it's at, I can get right to it, and here's some ideas that I've had for chapter 1, and then, it doesn't have to be chronological, or sequential, excuse me. Not chronological, it's sequential. But it will be eventually, but right now maybe I don't have any thoughts for chapter 2 or 3, but something, a few chapters down the line, I do know that this has to come in, so I may place it there. All right, so that's not the only one. Let's see if we can, here we go, outline. So this is essential. I'm not sure if I mentioned that or not. I did not mention that. Okay, well, so there's actually 6 documents that I keep. I'm really glad that we caught this. This to me is critical. And I think I did mention this up front, but just so we're looking at it, the outline, I will link this always back to the brainstorming, and I'll always link it back to the questions. And I'll have each one, obviously here, chapter 1 will be outlined, and then our bookmark and our hyperlinks. So this just tells me what's happening generally in each chapter, and just real quick, right? Just little bullet points, and then I'll go right on to the next chapter, and I'll usually, by the way, I'll do a page break in between these, and that's just my own personal way of keeping them separated. But you can see number 2, chapter 2, and then I get into it from there. If you get any questions on this, feel free to drop them in the comment section here, and if you like, you can head over to my webpage. It's timantoncopeland.com, and I've done a blog on this if you prefer to read it. So thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.